All right.
Now that these two are done being stupid.
All right, guys, I got a question for you. What is a pet peeve of yours in gaming? Like, when you talk about games with somebody, what is something that like, what's a pet peeve of yours? Like, whether they call Link Zelda, or you know, something like what's something that annoys you when people talk about games?
I mean, honestly, when I was a kid growing up, and somewhat like an adult, although I think it's more so like because there's so much more variety, it's not done as much. But regardless of what system I was playing, when people would refer to it as the same system,
as
like you're playing the Nintendo. Oh, let's go play the video game. It's like, what video game? Well, let's go play your video game. I've got more than one of them. Which one would you like to play? I don't know. Let's just play the video game and have some fun.
My favorite is the Nintendo. Oh, you here for Nintendo?
Yeah.
Like everything, no matter what system it is, it's Nintendo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Kevin, how about you? What annoys you about
Everything.
games? Yeah?
Everything.
The gaming community in general is just annoying to you?
Yeah.
I agree.
Wait, what's your pet peeve?
So,
does it have anything to do with, like, I don't know, just certain games and what their names are and what they're called?
Pronunciations?
Or typos?
Yeah, typos? Yeah. All right, so that was the worst preface I've ever done.
What?
So, yes. Welcome back to the Powercast, by the way.
They already know where they're at.
Yeah, now you're
just
listening
get to this.
Power. All right,
get into it.
Out of the way. So, I was on a Facebook group, right? RPGs, I love them. Everybody knows this. I'm basically spouting the same rhetoric. RPGs are the best. So I was on a group for RPGs, and lately I've been playing the Ys games, spelled YS, for anybody who doesn't know, because when you tell them what the name of the game or the game series is, they're like, huh? Ys.
Mm-hmm.
Not wise, because some people, when I was younger, I admit I made that faux pas. I called it Wanderers of Wise, because I thought it makes sense. Like the wise men,
sure.
There's 6 wise men in the series. Like, yeah, it made sense. Wise, whatever. It's actually pronounced Ys. Like easel without the L. Ys.
Yes, I got it. Ease. Yeah, it's easy.
So, yeah. Easy like Sunday morning. I don't know. But anyway, so I was in a group, and this one woman had posted, I suppose I should have muted my phone, my bad. This one woman had posted a thing about all the different, like, character designs at all, who's the main character of the series. Because the whole game series is about his adventures.
Mm-hmm.
Adol Kristen does this, he goes here and he does this. It's a cool system. But,
and the entire time, he has amnesia!
Oh, God. He's so much amnesia. It's ridiculous. He's just permanent brain damage. But, so she posted all his different, like, outfits and shit and all the different incarnations of them. Well, not incarnations, but the iterations, I guess. And I had made a comment about it, but I was in a hurry making this comment, because it was right before work. I was in my car and I was typing it out. And I had accidentally typed it Y''S. Whatever, I wasn't thinking about it. And you guys know autocorrect. You make that mistake once, that thing thinks that's what it is. So I did it again, because I was just typing YS, and it put that apostrophe in there without me paying attention, and I moved on. Well, let me tell you something about people in communities, boys. They
don't let you forget.
They don't let you forget, nor do they nothing's a mistake on the internet. Everything you did is deliberate. So somebody had pointed it out to me that I put the apostrophes in there. And if I remember the post right, he put sigh in asterisk. Audible sigh, whatever. There's no apostrophe between the Y and the S. There's no apostrophe there. It's something that annoys me, so that's, whatever. And then a comment immediately following his was, I bet you pronounce it wise, too. It's not pronounced that way. If you say it, it's pronounced ease. And he went on this thing about how to pronounce it. I'm like, bitch, I know. I've played every single game. even ones that aren't here on emulators. Like, I've played them. I know the series. It was a typo, faux pas that I made. My bad, boys. And I let it go. For the most part, I said, you know, my bad. Made a mistake. Whatever. And I moved on. So as a joke, you know, I responded to the woman's post because she had made a thing back. So just as a joke, the next time I typed the word "east," I put a Y and 15 apostrophes at the S. You know, because clearly it's funny. You know, it was funny to me anyway. Because he had said, he was like, "Oh, I'm sorry," or he never apologized, but he was like, "It's a trigger for me when people say east with the apostrophe and not east." Like, I give a shit, kid. Like, I don't fucking care. Like, and first of all, I hate when people say that that's a trigger for me.
If it's your hang-up, it's your hang-up.
Yeah.
And I have like that bothers me. Not the fact that that's like, if he's got triggers, that's fine. Okay, there are things that certain people like they hate, they don't want to deal with. That's fine. You're more than welcome to hate whatever you want.
Be as ignorant as you like.
But when you say the Y apostrophe S is a trigger, like, what kind of life are you leading where that is the most stressful thing going on in your life right now?
And that's what irritated me. It wasn't even the fact that he corrected me on it.
No,
it was the fact that he spelled out the word "sigh" as if this is something he's been battling for his entire life, and this is a daily occurrence for him. Somebody's talking about East games to him every single day, and he has to correct them on it. And it's like, that's what pissed me off. So that's why I did the 15 apostrophes or whatever.
Yep.
So somebody had commented on my thing saying, now there's no need to be rude or something like that. Be nice or whatever. And I'm like, this fucking bitch right here. Like, clearly it's a joke. And that's kind of where I started to like...
Maybe you should have put asterisk, joking asterisk.
Yeah,
so that it was an audible joke.
I figured it was denoted by the LOL that I put in there, you know?
Yes, sorry, it's an audible yoke.
But it was like that at that point, I'd kind of just lost it. I was like, dude, like, it's just a joke. Fucking calm your tits. Like, it's not that big a deal.
Did you really tell them to calm their tits?
I don't know if I said calm your tits. I said something along those lines, because you know me. Yeah, like, calm the fuck down. Like, it's not that big a deal. And then he did this. I wish I had saved the comment, but I didn't. Or I might have. I don't know. It would be in our conversations because I know I messaged you guys about it. Mm-hmm. But he like basically responded in kind with the people, your reactions are not dictated by how people react to you or some shit like that. You know, he was trying to do that air of superiority.
I'm better than you are.
I'm better than you, which fries my fucking bacon beyond belief. That's one thing I will say. Like, Kevin, I admit, is not everybody's cup of tea. He's a know-it-all jackass.
Hey!
He comes off that way to everybody he meets. But at least...
I can back my stuff up.
Well, not just that, but at least you can be swayed. To be, you know, if somebody can prove you wrong, and they do, you admit, yep, you got
Tim does it all the time.
Yeah.
He's pretty good with it.
Tim is very good at it, but Tim is super learned.
Yeah.
And the fact that you never act like you're superior to anybody. You never sit there and you would never make the comment that guy did.
No.
You know what I mean? Because that just that chaps my cheeks. Like, I hate it.
I might, like, with you two.
Right.
But then it's that you guys know I am just messing with you at that point.
Right. But I mean, that's kind of my point, is you're a know-it-all guy who doesn't act like he's better than anybody. And that's where I was just like, dude, peace out. I left the group, which is a shame because they were like, a lot of the posts were shit that like I'm interested in. Like, they were posting about like Grandia and the Wild Arms series and like just like lesser known RPGs. And that I thought was really cool. And it's a shame that I left it. Because the people that were, like, that did the sigh, they corrected me and then tried to correct me on the pronunciation, they were admins of the group. Like, you literally have that little tact on correcting somebody that, come on, dude. So, like, who is I going to complain to? Because they're the ones who run the page.
Yeah.
So it's like, because he was like, oh, I'm just trying to save you embarrassment if you go around to other groups pronouncing it that way or whatever. sorry for looking out for you, and then he did like the eye rolling emoji thing. And I was like, get the fuck out of here. And then I just left it, and I'm like, fuck off.
So nothing like trying to say like, oh, I was just trying to help you, and still it was like a backhanded comment. Like,
Yeah.
you like still insulting you on the way out. Like,
There were better ways to go about it. He
Very
could have
much
said,
so.
I agree, the game series is great, it's very underrated. By the way, there's no apostrophe between the Y and the S. It's a very common mistake, you know, just to let you know.
mm-hmm.
That would have played out so much different.
And then you could have easily have corrected yourself
my
and said,
bad.
oh, yeah, my bad. My phone auto-corrected it.
Yeah.
I played this series from its inception, and I know that there's no apostrophe in there.
Yeah. Like, there's so many different ways he could have phrased it to instead of fucking acting like it was a chore for him.
Mm-hmm.
Or like this is such a fucking... I don't know. But that... I hate people, man. I truly do. Like, what's going on with you guys?
Wow.
It really pisses me off.
It looks like Andy is visibly triggered.
I am triggered. I'm triggered by people being triggered. It's a never-ending cycle, boys!
Oh, evil begets evil.
The only way to battle a monster is to become one. Did you ever heard that saying?
No.
No, let's take care of battling monsters lest ye become one.
No. Well, I've heard it both ways. I've heard the only way to fight a monster is to become a
No,
monster.
it's the only way to fight evil is
I
with
feel like
evil.
there's games that have done that before, like in
I think I've heard that even outside of
Zombies Ate My Neighbors.
God,
you can get the monster formula. You turn into a monster and you're like
Oh, yeah.
invisible or invincible, and you can beat the crap out of everything else. Kill in one hit. Yeah,
Yeah. Zombies Ate My Neighbors.
that's fun.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to change the subject.
But anyway, that's been my experience. What's up with you guys lately? So, well, I suppose I should finish. Lately, I've been playing the East games. That's just basically in preparation for East 9, Monstrum Nox in February.
I think you mean wise.
Oh god. Oh god. See, now that's one of my favorite things too, is when people correct you, but they correct you incorrectly.
I know. I love
Like
that.
somebody that we both know.
Yeah.
How does he? It's not. How do you say it? Sokoden?
Suikoden?
Suikoden?
Suikoden.
Suikoden, something stupid.
I've heard actually other people pronounce it Suikoden, and the way that I deal with things like that is like, okay, if you pronounce it Suikoden, like, I'm fine with that because I know exactly what you're talking about.
Exactly.
And it's like that's the way that you've always pronounced it. I've always known it as Suikoden.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, it doesn't. If I pronounced it, I would call it Suikoden. But if you call it Suikoden, so what?
Yeah.
We both know we both know what you're talking about. There's no reason to correct it.
Yeah. As long as I know what you're saying, it's
Yes.
fine.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Yeah, I would never correct somebody as long like if they said something where it was so off that I didn't know what they were talking about. I'd just be like, what game is that you're talking about? And then they would say something, and I'm like, oh, you're talking about this game, and then I would correct them. And
See, I'd have gone the other way because it's not a Japanese word.
No, it's not.
It's Yiddish.
Yeah.
is it really?
Which actually,
Yes.
there's an
Oh.
Easter egg on
So East, like, it's actually, there's... I bet you that, like, if you were to actually be speaking Yiddish, it'd probably be pronounced different as well.
the East.
Yeah.
Oh.
there's an
That means, for those that don't know, that's Jewish language.
Oh.
Yiddish.
Yiddish
yeah.
is a Jewish language.
Yeah, Yiddish
I thought
Hebrew is another...
Hebrew,
there's- that's like Mandarin
Arabic?
and it's
Arabic
like Mandarin
is
and
also-
Cantonese. They're both
Oh,
Chinese.
gotcha. Oh, gotcha,
Yiddish
gotcha.
is just another one of
It's
the...
like a dialect, isn't it?
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so.
Yeah.
It's that, or it's another, it's one of the things. It's one of the languages they can tend to speak.
Yeah. Which actually I found a lot of references in the East series are like Jewish.
To Kabbalah and...
Yeah. Because one of the I can't remember if it's a sword or a shield or a piece of armor or something has actually it's the lettering on it is actually like Yiddish backwards, and that's like the runes that are on it. It's actually kind of interesting. The whole game series is super interesting, but that's not what we're here to talk about. Anyway, what's going on with you, Paul?
Honestly, I can't think of anything.
You're just existing.
I'm just existing. No, it's just work has been busy. So it's just I haven't really had much time to do anything. Although game-wise, I've gone a little bit back.
Don't you mean Game East? Sorry.
I stand corrected.
Boom, baby!
No, I've actually went a little bit back in time. Do you guys remember when they released Super Mario Bros. Deluxe on the Game Boy Color?
Yes.
I played through that because I found out that on that game, if you beat the game with a score of like 300,000 or more, you can unlock the actual like Japanese version of Super Mario Bros. 2.
So, like, lost levels, quote unquote?
Basically, only it's not lost levels, like because
Really?
it's not the updated version that was on the Super Mario All-Stars cart. It was the original version that was on the Famicom.
Really?
And so I don't know why, but I was on a kick of wanting to play that because I remember it being tough, and I remember it being super hard. But I just wanted to play it again, just be like, okay, is it as hard as I remember it? And so I ended up unlocking it and playing through it. And yes, that game is hard. And honest to God, I think that Nintendo played it right. They should not have said that this game was deemed too hard for American players, which is why we got Doki Doki Panic rebranded as a Mario game. But honestly, that game is so hard, but so trolling and intentionally difficult, where they put hidden Kaizo blocks in your area, like the whole jumping thing, where it's like you'll jump, you'll hit a Kaizo block, and you're down. They will place enemies to where if you touch an enemy, like if you jump on that enemy, it's placed perfectly so that if you touch it, you'll drop like an anvil, and you won't make your jump. Or they'll do things where I think there was actually one level where they put a Starman somewhere where if you actually get it, you're actually going to screw yourself over because you won't be able to jump on a Koopa in order to hit like a vine. So it's like it is so intentionally trolling that it is infuriating to play it because I find value in a difficult game, but when you make the difficulty intentional like that, but only for the sake of screwing over the player, that borderline is unfair, then I have a problem with it. And I think to myself, man, how different would the Mario series be if Americans got Super Mario Bros. 1 and then the Japanese Super Mario Bros. 2? Would 3 have been as popular as it was when people would have known that it's like, oh, well, they're doing this, they're trolling us, this game's that difficult, like, I don't want to play Super Mario Bros. 3. They're just going to do the same thing. It's like, I feel like the entire Mario franchise could have been so much different if they did end up releasing 2.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, like, that kind of feels like what 90% of Mario Maker levels are. Is just
For the most part,
intentionally
yeah.
trolling.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you ever look at, what was his face on Game Grumps? Ross. He like, has
Ross's
a whole
levels.
thing
I
of
know.
just making levels because he's so good at it.
I know.
Like, and it's just really, it's interesting to me that, because I remember you playing Lost Levels at my house once, back when I still lived with my parents. I remember you were in my bedroom.
Yep.
And it was on the All-Stars cart.
Yep.
That I somehow don't have anymore.
I was going to say, it somehow
even know where it
is somehow is gone. So, but
yeah, and I remember watching it. It was fucking brutal.
it was super brutal.
That
And-
game, that series, I think would have been so much different had that been the official 2.
Absolutely. And so people can say what they want about the Super Mario Brothers 2 that we got. I mean, honestly, I think it went from a beloved game to the black sheep to now I think it's, again, being fondly remembered as, like, we love...
Well, it's
that we
also
got-
fondly remembered
yeah.
because that's where a bunch of the stuff comes from. The newer
Yeah.
stuff.
Birdo
Yeah.
was
The Shy Guys, like other.
Ninjas came back, yeah.
wow.
Bombs.
Yeah,
I mean,
Bob-ombs
even
started
Bombs, yeah.
It's just really funny how many things they actually drew from a game that wasn't even a Mario game to start.
And then they became Mario
icons.
lore, and
it's,
icons.
It's
yeah.
really funny to me.
And, as the instruction booklet points out, Birdo, being the world's first video game... Can I say this?
Why not?
The world's first video game transvestite.
Yeah.
Because it says in the instruction booklet, and you can look it up, it says the bird who is a girl who thinks he's a boy.
No, I thought it was the other way around.
Or it's
the boy
something
who thinks
something
he's a
like
girl.
the boy who thinks he's a girl.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Yes, the boy who thinks he's a girl because like it's a he, but he's got like a bow in his hair and
He's pink. He's got eggs.
He's got eggs. Yeah. So it's like, how cool is that they actually did something like that? You can't get away with that in a
Which
game
then
now.
they kind of backpedaled on in later games because now they put lipstick on it and it's clearly feminine.
And made it officially like, oh no, it's a girl. It's always been a girl. It's like, well, your instruction booklet would say different.
Well, but and
that was that time before PC culture.
Wonder.
Yeah.
I kind of wonder how much that too was like translation stuff, maybe, because back then translations weren't exactly accurate.
I mean,
So there's always the possibility that whoever was translating put their own flair on it.
It could be.
You never know.
But I honestly, I don't think that's the case because I do know that they had some things that were poorly translated. But if you look at Nintendo things like the lore from their first party titles like Legend of Zelda, Super Mario Brothers, they had really developed backstories in the instruction booklet.
Yeah,
they knew how to write.
But then you look at stuff like Castlevania 2 and that disproves all of that.
That could have been hardware limitation.
That
too.
could have been hardware
And
limitation.
But like not telling you where to go, not trans.
Yeah.
But that's
No.
because of poor translations and the words don't work.
No,
But
because
also
you also had that in Zelda 2 where
Yeah.
you had I am error. It's like they didn't know how to say like I don't know or something like that. It's like it came off I am error.
And not to mention they only had so much room to put space because they didn't have scrolling text. Mm-hmm. So like, that's why you have so many like broken phrases in like Link.
Yeah.
And even in Castlevania 2 is the same thing where they have so many like shortened phrases that don't make sense is because they can't.
You had the limitations
say,
of it,
like-
yeah.
Which it's not a hardware limitation because Final Fantasy scrolls.
Yeah,
Dragon
Final Fantasy
Warrior-
had scrolling text. Yeah.
Dragon
Yeah,
Warrior
but-
had scrolling
Oh no,
text.
Final Fantasy didn't. No, it didn't.
But
it
it-
also had a huge window.
But it had multiple
Yeah.
boxes where it would do all the text and then do another box of text.
Yeah, but-
so it wasn't a hardware limitation. It was what they were doing with the game and
you
how it
also,
was.
Yeah, but
you also
Castle-
got to remember, fucking Final Fantasy came out late.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Dragon Warrior was pretty early.
Castlevania 2 was 1988 or 89, I think, and Final Fantasy was 1990. And Dragon Warrior was, I think,
that's not that much different.
Final Fantasy was late 1990, and I believe Dragon Warrior was early 1990.
Yeah.
Because Dragon Warrior came first. Then
And actually, Final Fantasy didn't have scrolling text. It was one stagnant.
1986 for Dragon Warrior.
Yeah, 86.
in Japan, I guess we got it in.
So
we got it in
scrolling
1990
like
in
text
America.
with multiple boxes was already a thing. So it's not a hardware
But
limitation.
look how
it's a,
simplistic.
it's a translation.
Look how
issue.
simplistic Dragon Warrior is, comparatively speaking.
Yeah, but it's still.
But-
You said multiple boxes of text like that
Yeah.
weren't a thing. 1986, they were a thing.
Yeah.
So
it was.
it's a large chunk of it has to be translation.
Yeah, but
errors.
still, just the way that it's worded, though, in the instruction booklet, I just, going back to it, I don't think that it was a mistranslation. I think they knew exactly what they were talking about.
Maybe, but
it's no poison issue.
Yeah.
With what is it, Final Fight?
and then
Poison
Street
was a
Fighter.
woman.
And then Street Fighter.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Poison was a woman
And then they
in
changed,
Final Fight.
and then they changed it to a cross-dressing guy because
they didn't want Cody or whoever
to be beating
up a
women.
woman.
Yeah.
They didn't want men beating women up, so they changed it.
Was there something similar in Double Dragon as well too with Linda?
I'm not sure. Double Dragon, I'm not so.
Or did
yeah,
they
I don't
never? Oh, they. I mean, they basically.
that one I don't know what you're talking.
They basically they don't not only took it as it was. They embraced it because you grab her by the hair and you punch her. It's like
They gave no qualms in fucking
Yeah.
Streets of Rage either, man. I'll tell you.
Oh my god!
But yeah, Final Fight for some reason,
They just
Poison,
decided to change it. Yeah,
It was very strange. But I don't know. I always felt Birdo was. I mean, who really cares?
It doesn't. It doesn't really matter. It's just a fun little fact that if you look up the Super Mario
Yeah.
Brothers 2 instruction booklet, it will be as clear as day there. So.
Yeah. Well, Kevin, how about you? What's been up with you lately?
Not a whole lot.
What you been playing up?
God Eater 3 on Switch.
Again?
I
Yeah.
traded in my PS4 copy to get it on Switch because it was on sale on Switch for like $17, and I could get $17 for the PS4 copy. So I was like, what the fuck not? I'll just do the trade in.
And I think you got a bunch of extra shit too in that version, didn't you?
Yeah, not to mention, I don't know why it feels like it plays better.
On the Switch? I'm not surprised, actually.
Well, and the other big thing is I'm so used to God Eater being on PSP and then Vita. handheld. Wanted it back handheld. It is
Yeah.
so like I've been playing and like I don't know like thinking back on the PS4 version, did the game seem like overly shiny to you? Like surface of the clothes and stuff were oddly like or wet.
Wet, I would say.
So it looked like everything had that
maybe.
like damp look to it.
A sheen
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
it.
maybe. I don't know. It's been a while since I played it.
But like on the Switch, I don't really see that as much because like they obviously had to tone it down some for it.
Yeah.
But like it looks better. I've not had a single frame drop on it, even though I had some on PS4.
That's weird.
So like it plays great in both on the TV and in handheld mode. So it's I've kind of been playing through that again.
It's kind of funny when I first bought East 8, Lacrimosa of, is it Dana or Donna? I don't.
I'm
gonna say Lacrimosa of Donna because I think they pronounce her name Donna. I had it originally on PS4. Well, once they announced it for the Switch, I actually gave my PS4 copy away and played it on the Switch. It played better on the Switch than it did PS4 for me, which is weird. Which I'm almost curious to see what I want to do. Well, I know what I want to do when East 9 comes out, because that comes out in February for the PS4 and then June for the Switch.
Yeah.
So I'm probably going to end up getting both again because I'm a fucking idiot. I've actually already pre-ordered collector's editions for both.
Let the record show. Andy called himself an idiot.
I am.
Nobody else
you know
prompted
what?
that.
To be honest, it's also not the first game he has bought multiple times.
Persona 5, anybody?
Much staff. How many times have you bought Final Fantasy?
Well, we've talked about this.
I know.
The original Final Fantasy's been different every time.
I know, but you still have bought it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean...
I bought Diablo 3, I don't know, like 4 different times.
to his defense, too, I think that's, like, a normal thing, because, I mean, I've how many times have I purchased Resident Evil 2? Like the original one. I've got it on PlayStation. I've got the DualShock edition. I've got the N64 version. I've got the GameCube version. It's like,
Isn't it on Saturn as well, or no?
No, Resident Evil 1.
One.
Resident Evil 1 was. Which I do have on the Saturn as well, too. Of course you do. And I've got Resident Evil 1, the long box. I've got Resident Evil 1, the jewel case version. I've got Resident Evil 1, the director's cut. I've got it on the...
Jesus.
I've got Resident Evil on the GameCube. So you know what? Yes, I cannot...
He's the best.
I cannot blame anybody who buys things on the same system. Or on, like, different platforms.
Well, you want to talk about that? Look at Tim. When Mega Man 11 came out, I think he bought it for literally every platform he possibly could. But, I mean, I like to do it because I like to support that franchise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because it's one that's super underappreciated.
Yeah.
I don't think many people really tout that series the way it deserves to be touted. But, I don't know.
Yeah, so I've been playing through God Eater. And yeah, it has all the updates, so it's all the extra costumes and whatnot.
That's cool. I actually wouldn't mind going back to that one. I really enjoyed God Eater 3.
Yeah. And then I'm waiting for to see how Genshin Impact will be at the end of the month.
I was just about to mention that. That one actually looks pretty cool. It's
For
like
a free-to-play game that's going to be on Android, iOS, PS4, and then Switch eventually.
Yeah.
It looks like a fully developed game, but it's made by Mio. They do a bunch of Honkai Impact and stuff like that.
Oh, they do the Apple Store games.
Yeah, but this game, it looks like
it's like Breath of the Wild, but with like Tails characters.
Yeah. So and then the thing that really caught my eye was like ice-based characters, like swinging their weapon around and freezing water, so you could walk across rivers and stuff like that, or like in Breath of the Wild, lighting the grass on fire and watching it spread.
Yeah.
But then being able to combine the elements, so you combine fire with wind, you spread it bigger, or hit someone with water and then hit lightning and it'll arc to a bunch of different people.
That's a cool idea. We'll see how well that works though. With being free to play,
the only thing is, it's going to have the gacha type systems in it, which is the random draw. But the way it's looking is they're giving people a whole bunch of free stuff because I think it's 3 or 4 million people have already pre-registered accounts for the game.
My God,
across all the all the stuff. So
that'll be impossible to play for a while.
Well, and that's the other thing is I've been watching people play it on the Chinese servers. I've never seen anyone playing alongside other people. So I think it's instanced for yourself.
That's so weird. Why would you do free to play model then?
Because you can make more money. Fortnite has shown it. That's like one of the most lucrative fucking business models in the world.
Yeah, but that makes sense for a game where you're playing online with other people. You know what I mean? Like that makes sense in like a battle royale or like a Call of Duty.
And I actually tried Spellbreak as well.
Yeah,
that one I actually played pretty fun on the Switch.
Yeah, that was one I was looking at too. But again, I'm not battle royale.
Yeah, I've done a couple of matches. I won my first match, and then I've only done a couple more since.
Yeah, I was looking at Spellbreak as well. But speaking of multiple platforms, that kind of, holy shit, half an hour into the episode, kind of alludes to the topic of conversation for today, which will be the console wars. And the illusion of that today. Because people are trying to stoke the fire of a console war that's not even a thing.
That's not really even. I don't think that there's really console wars anymore.
I don't think so.
Not if you don't. Well, if you look at it from the big picture, no. But if you look at it from like the fan point of view, yeah, it's alive and well.
Right, but at least with Genesis and Super Nintendo, which is basically that's where console wars started because that's when Nintendo had a direct competitor. I mean, did NES really have a competitor back in the day? Not really.
It didn't. So you had basically the Atari and all those other things, and then you had the collapse in 1983 into 84, and then Nintendo came in and revitalized the video game market.
Yeah,
kind of brought it back from the brink. The phoenix rose, and Nintendo we have to thank for that in the West.
Yeah.
Then I guess Atari tried to come back with their 7800, and I don't think it ever really did a good job competing with the Nintendo.
When was the 5200?
5200 was 81 or 82.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
The original Atari came out in 76 or 77. So,
okay.
I mean, it was like 4 years later so that they released it 4 or 5 years later.
God, that's hard to fathom.
Yeah,
isn't it?
and then the 7800 came out in I want to say 86 or 87.
So which one was the one that most people have played?
The 2600.
The 2600?
2600.
See, I was confused though. 26 and 52.
Which one's the 52? Is that the big one?
So the 2600 had the smaller like black plastic carts that you're used to.
Right.
The Atari 5200 had the fatter ones.
Yeah.
And then the 7800s went back to the same size as the 2600s.
Maybe I've never seen a 7800 then.
Probably never saw a 7800.
I know, because we had the 5200
yes.
growing up. Because we had like Blueprint and I want to say like, oh god.
Well, they made a lot of games that...
We had like a few games
they came out for the 2600, but they also ported them to the 5200.
And there was like another one
not backwards compatible.
It played like King of the Mountain or something like that. I don't know. It was something goofy. Was our 5200 game and
Okay, yeah.
But the 7800 was actually what?
That's the 78. Oh, I've never seen a 7800.
Yeah, but the 7800 was actually backwards compatible with the 2600 games.
Wow.
It was not backwards compatible with 5200, but
Obviously.
that's because they were different sizes.
That's a cool idea.
So, but yeah, that was like the... Oh, and they actually had like a controller, which is when they were trying to compete directly with Nintendo.
Yep.
Wow, that's
and
so
Nintendo,
crazy.
Yeah,
Nintendo crushed them.
And oh god, Nintendo crushed them big time. I mean, even in the West, you had like the Sega Master System, which was more in line with what the which was more in line with what the Nintendo was, but Sega Master System never really caught on big around here.
To be honest, I had never really even heard of a Master System.
Not until years and years and years later. Yeah.
I always thought Genesis was the first Sega console here.
And
I didn't hear about it until I was already doing like
Yep.
PS2 and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep, and it wasn't. So yeah, I would say in that first generation when video games came back, Nintendo really didn't even have any kind of rivalry with anybody, or there was no competition. It wasn't until Sega came out with the what?
Oh, good. Finish it.
It didn't happen until Sega then said, "Okay, we're taking it one step further. We're bringing the Mega Drive, otherwise known as the Genesis, here in the West." And then from there, Nintendo said, "Okay, well, we'll compete with that." And then they brought on the Super Nintendo, and then that's really what I think kind of brought on what people know now collectively as the console wars.
Well,
oh yeah.
And to be honest, it's kind of telling that they didn't have competition because If you look at some of the games that were released, they're just not only developers didn't know what the hell they were doing, but the games are just garbage
on
the
on
Nintendo.
the Nintendo.
Some of
It's
them...
a combination of not knowing developers not knowing how to program very well, and then no competition making it so you have to strive to be better.
That is true, but
I mean, look at LGN.
but they
Or Radical.
Yeah.
Nintendo didn't want the same thing happening to the market as happened to the 2600,
yes.
so that's why they implemented that whole five licensee limit.
Yeah.
Like for I think honestly through the whole through the lifespan of at least the Nintendo.
They didn't need another E.T. on their hands, because isn't
Exactly.
E.T. considered like when the collapse started?
So it's a lot of people point back to E.T. as being the main culprit, and while it is probably one of the more prolific pieces of it, there's a lot of other things that happen. The port of Pac-Man was another piece that really
that was horrible.
That really kind of led to that downfall, and then there was just a whole bunch of
Mismanagement by the company.
Mismanagement by the company.
Like
a lot of people were producing games trying to make a quick buck, and they were churning out crap. And so it's just with having something as high profile as E.T. advertised for a game and watching it just crash and burn.
Even Raiders of the Lost Ark was shit.
And Raiders of the Lost Ark was a little bit was not as great either. And that's actually one thing that drives me nuts, is that what people don't realize is that Steven Spielberg had a large part of the demise of E.T. and the Atari, because that man never saw that video game. And if he saw it, he never played it. Absolutely, he didn't play it. But there was an interview, and I would love to find this interview, but he was interviewed, and they talked about the game, and he literally just gave this throwaway line about the game. He's like, oh yeah, I've seen the game. Yeah, it's great. Oh, it's great? He's like, yeah, it's great. And he just straight-laced, serious as a heart attack. He's just like, oh yeah, I've seen it. Oh, it's great. It's really good.
Yeah,
and it's like, come on, now you're just
blatantly lying.
Well, Spielberg, you have to realize at the time.
Or he saw a very early build that was great, and then they went, we don't have time to finish it.
No, there was no early build. There was no early build. The early build was called E.T.
I'll say final product from conception to printing.
But you have to remember the power that Spielberg had then.
Oh, yeah, he was on top of the world.
He was basically responsible for the summer blockbuster. Yeah. Like, he is what put summer blockbuster on the maps with Jaws.
Yeah.
He had Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and he had all these wonderful, he was just known for this kind of stuff. And then E.T. came out, and he took the world by storm again. And so people were like, okay, whatever he says, it's going to be gold. So people went out, they bought that game, and for some, maybe that was their first experience into the Atari. And when they see that and they're thinking, this is all this system is capable of? This is
garbage.
This is garbage. All right. So video games are just a passing phase. They're like pet rocks.
Pet rocks.
I don't know. I suppose it's not very different, because even nowadays, when you look at games that are based off of licenses, the person who you generally created the original thing it's based off of really rarely has any input.
But that's also comes from the fact that a lot of licenses now are so far removed from the creator that they wouldn't have a say regardless.
But
because that's like having Spider-Man now, you have rights to not only the movie, but now the comic book character and also the video game character. And it's and none of them intertwine. The guy who created it basically has no say what happens over his creation anymore, where back then, I don't think that was quite a thing. The guy who did the Indiana Jones game for the Atari, probably still had to answer to Spielberg at some point.
Well, he was the same guy who did E.T. It was Howard Scott Warshaw.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's funny, too, because if you want to watch a really funny, take on E.T., it's a super throwback show from back in the day when, I would say we were God, were we just out of high school-ish? Code Monkeys?
Oh.
Oh yeah,
They did that
2000,
episode
yeah.
where they were basically, it was a parody of the E.T.
Of E.T.,
release.
yeah. Mhm.
That episode was fantastic because it basically showed like the whole
What happened.
You have to make
Yeah.
this game in, what was it, a month?
He had 5 weeks
5 week, Jesus Christ.
to come up with a concept, an idea for the game, to program it, and to have a finished version of it so that they could basically mass manufacture the carts
Million copies.
for Christmas.
Yeah, but that episode of Code Monkeys always sticks out in my head because they talk about that, and it's just so funny, and it really shows how shitty like that process was for them.
Who the fuck is Steven Spielberg?
That was such a good episode, man. But yes, so Genesis and Super Nintendo, that's where the console wars
Birth of the
started.
console wars. Yep.
And it makes sense.
And technically, it started because of PR departments.
Oh yeah.
Oh, for the most part. Oh yeah.
It was all PR bullshit back
Yeah,
and forth.
Genesis
It
does
was-
what Nintendo don't.
It wasn't originally a fan thing. It was marketing.
Yeah.
That's all it was.
They were trying to say, and that's at a time where they were pushing bits. Like, I think the Sega Genesis was the first one. They even put on the
was on the
console
system.
itself 16 bits.
Yeah.
And the
There's-
average person didn't know what that meant.
They are still doing
16-bit.
They are
High
s-
definition graphics.
they are still doing that nowadays with like
Mm-hmm.
teraflops.
Yeah.
Teraflops.
What are
It's
terrible-
graphical computation
Oh.
process that it's an acronym for something that the graphics card does.
Oh, okay.
But like they still push that, or like how many like gigahertz is your processor, and so
Basically,
it's
a buzzword.
It's well, it's just so funny because Sega was doing that before like people even knew that whole lexicon. They didn't know what a bit was.
No.
They just knew that more bits meant like better graphics. And so they were just like, "Oh, we got 16 bits." And "Oh no, we got 16 bits with this going on." And then it's like, "Oh no, we've got 32 bits." And it's like and the whole time around everybody's just looking at each other like, "What the hell's a bit?"
I was to say,
What's a bit?
how many bits was the Atari? It must be 4 bits.
Honestly, I think it was like 4 bits.
Yeah, because Nintendo's 8, obviously, because the 8-bit era.
Yeah.
But and it's so funny, but it also comes back to the fact that exclusives were exclusive.
They were.
The RPGs on the SNES never made it to the Genesis, and vice versa. Hell, I would say 75, maybe 70% of their libraries were exclusive.
But there was also a time too, and I think we've alluded to this in other episodes though. But it was also there were no just straight up ports on multiple like cross porting.
Yeah,
Like
they all were their own
released
unique
like
game,
I'm
like
looking
Aladdin.
at like Aladdin on the SNES that came out. The Aladdin that came out on the Sega Genesis, 2 completely different games.
Yeah.
Different music, different graphics, different
different experiences.
different levels, different experiences.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the only game that did that. Where it's
Jurassic
like
Park.
Jurassic Park had vastly different play styles. Actually, even 2 different styles of gameplay. You had the Super Nintendo version, which had like a top down, but then you also had the first person experience. And then for the Sega Genesis, it was all just like platforming basically. And side-scrolling action.
It's just very fascinating.
yeah.
The only ones that were ever like basically the same were like the fighting games. You had Mortal Kombat. You had
And even-
Super Street Fighter.
Well, and even the first Mortal Kombat actually screwed Nintendo because they wanted to keep it family friendly and clean. They took out the
didn't
blood.
screw Nintendo. Nintendo screwed themselves.
Well, Nintendo screwed themselves. So they took out the blood, and basically sales for Mortal Kombat on the Sega Genesis just dominated Nintendo.
Oh, yeah.
And so when Mortal Kombat 2 came out, they're like, all right, it'll be M for mature, but we'll put blood in.
Yeah.
It'll be an accurate port.
And to be perfectly honest, even obviously I grew up with the Genesis. You grew up on the Super Nintendo
did.
side. Kevin, I don't really know.
I had both.
You were one of the weird kids who had
You
both.
rich snob.
No, we got the Super Nintendo from my aunt for Like, I think my aunt and my uncle had bought it at one point and didn't want it anymore, so we got it.
Oh, okay.
And then my brother was working, and he saved up and bought a Genesis for himself. So I had access to both.
You were one of the freaks that
Granted, they weren't at launch, so it was like
it's
a year
funny
or so in. Maybe
it's funny
more.
that I say that, Rich Snob, because I think we actually did grow up with both. Like my older brother got a Sega Genesis for his birthday one year, and then we got me and my twin brother, we got a Super Nintendo for our birthday, and this was like 1993, so it's like it came out like a couple of years after launch. But honestly, once I got the Super Nintendo, I don't think I ever played the Sega Genesis again until I was like a young adult, basically.
Yeah.
Just because I loved the graphics of the Super Nintendo, I loved the sound, I loved the look of the games. The controller was a heck of a lot more comfortable too.
But I didn't have Shining Force on Super Nintendo.
No, it did not.
Or Taz.
It did not.
Or
Escape from Mars.
But as
But
a kid, I did not.
care.
I did not care one way or the other. I didn't even know what an RPG was.
Not until Super Mario
Not
RPG.
until Super Mario RPG in 1996.
But that's kind of my point. Is like I played like Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter. I played it on both. The Genesis version to me is better on of Street Fighter 2 and Mortal Kombat. It plays better. It looks smoother for some reason, and the Super Nintendo version doesn't quite play as well.
Yeah, but Genesis didn't have Killer Instinct either, so...
No, it didn't.
We
had Eternal Champions!
Yes, you did.
That game was shit! And I think Samurai Showdown, wasn't that a Genesis thing?
Yeah, well, I think they ported Samurai Showdown to the Super
Maybe.
Nintendo as well, because they had it on Game Boy. Yeah.
Oh, maybe.
I have it on the Game Boy.
Because I remember playing Samurai Showdown on the Genesis and absolutely loving it. But it was just, it's funny because those and it's those things that, like, is what defined the console war generation. That's what I'm going to call it, the console war generation. Is the fact that certain games would play better on one versus the other, and you knew it. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, as a Genesis kid, I loved my RPGs on the Genesis. You know, Landstalker and, like you'd point out, the Shining Force games and Phantasy Star. However, I always coveted
Final Fantasy and Chrono Trigger.
Final Fantasy, Chrono Trigger, Soul Blazer, like
Secret of Mana.
Secret of Mana
was a big one.
Yep.
Even though I didn't care for Mana, I liked Evermore better.
Earthbound,
Earthbound, like,
Evermore. Yep.
The
there was
fucking
a lot.
Super Nintendo crushed Genesis
Legend
when it
of
came to
Legaia.
RPGs.
Yep.
Yeah. So, well, Legaia. Legend of Legaia was PlayStation 1.
Was it? Wait. What Legaia then am I thinking of then? There was a Legaia that came out on the Super Nintendo, wasn't there?
There was a Lagoon.
The Bahamut Lagoon or whatever.
Well, there was Lagoon, and then there was a Bahamut Lagoon. That was a strategy RPG. There were a fucking ass ton of RPGs that never even made it here.
Interesting.
Treasure Hunter G was one that never came here. Treasures of Rudras, which was another Square Enix masterpiece. Like, you would, if you go to like any repro site and look up the RPGs that they can make repro carts of, it would make you sick of how many never actually made it here.
Oh, I can only imagine. I mean, Terranigma was one of those that I saw that I'm like, how did this never make it to the to the United States?
Are you thinking of Illusion of Gaia?
Illusion of Gaia was the one I was
there
thinking
you
of.
go.
Thank you so much for looking that up.
It was part of that trilogy.
Yes,
Yeah.
and actually that was the Terranigma, Soul Blazer, and
Seventh Saga?
No, Seventh
Or-
Saga was not part of it. It was just the trilogy.
Yeah.
It was
Terranigma, Illusion of Gaia, and
Soul Blazer.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Which one did you say? Seventh Saga was a good one too, actually. Now that I think about
Yeah,
it.
that's... Sorry, it was just in this list that popped
Yeah.
up, so I wasn't sure if...
But it's funny because, and that's something you could, like, Genesis people will try to defend, is we have very good RPGs, but you know in their heart of hearts, they're like, dude,
Super
Nintendo
Nintendo
killed
had
it.
some really good
yeah, but
ones.
if you wanted a sports game, Sega was where it's at.
The Lufias did not come out for
Lufia's game,
they
yeah.
did not come out for the Super Nintendo.
Those were both really good.
Or for the Sega Genesis.
Breath
I'm
of
sorry.
Fire?
Yeah, Breath of Fire.
I mean, the fucking Super Nintendo destroyed it.
Yeah.
Even though it wasn't really an RPG, it was an action RPG, I would call it, because it was like Link to the Past. But Demon's Crest was Super Nintendo as well. That was
East 3, Wanderers of East, or Wanderers, is it from East of East? I never
don't
remember.
know.
That was Super Nintendo. Oh, that was Genesis as well, actually.
I was gonna say because East they ported to both systems. I think
because that was
yeah.
what was that originally? Was that?
I think it was originally Wise.
No, I'm trying to remember where the East game started. It wasn't
A PC Engine, I believe.
No.
It could have been PC Engine.
Wasn't it the Master System?
It could have been.
I think it was the Master
System. Yeah. So, that's funny that it would be on Super Nintendo then. Huh. But
Nope. The NEC PC 8801.
Oh, okay. That's what I thought. But either way, like you could that was the defining moment or the defining factor of that generation, the console wars.
Mm-hmm.
You know, then obviously once the next wave of consoles came out, like your PlayStation and Saturn, shit like that, like Super Nintendo, Genesis, like that whole rivalry died off. You know, because the N64 was so far removed after the fact that, I mean, Nintendo basically had a gap there. I mean, you had PlayStation and Saturn, I guess you could say, had a rivalry, but not really.
But not quite.
Nothing has ever had that degree of rivalry that the Genesis and Super Nintendo had.
And it's funny because I think that Sega may have been the first ones to use a CD-ROM based like disc for their games. You had the Sega CD, you had the Sega Saturn, and so they weren't like PlayStation wasn't the first to do it, but for some reason PlayStation, I guess being the new kids on the block, they just had some really good games on the system that just really they took off running, and they then became like the ones to catch because then the N64 came out, and yes, it was initially popular at first. It had some really good support. You had the GoldenEye games, you had Super Mario 64. So I mean, it had its share of stuff. Zelda, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask. There's so many all-star caliber games on that system, but PlayStation just for some reason it just kept taking its meteoric rise and it never stopped. So I think even though the console wars were still alive during that time, it was definitely not of that. It wasn't as fervent as it was on the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis era. But I think, and dare I say it, let the record show, Paul is saying that Kevin is right about this. Is that I think the marketing, it was more so about Sega marketing against Nintendo and Nintendo trying to bash Sega. That is what made that console war so iconic.
To be honest, and I think outside of that like generation of consoles, each generation has been so clearly dominated by one system that like they're really other than outside going into like the fan bases and talking between them, there was no console war anymore because like there was a clear definitive, this console is selling the most. It's just that's what it is. Like there has never really been a close thing since then.
No, it's like you had PlayStation 1 just completely destroyed. Then you had
PS2.
the PS2, Xbox, and the GameCube. Well, the GameCube,
Dreamcast,
you don't count
and Dreamcast kind of like came and went. That was really sad.
And that's kind of the funniest part is Genesis was so good. I mean, and then you had like the peripherals that attached to it, like you said, the Sega CD. You even had the 32X.
Yeah.
Which I mean, that fucking thing looked like a beast when you put it all together.
Yeah, it did.
I mean, it had 3 iterations of the Genesis. Like, that's awesome. No other system had really done that other than, like, the Nintendo had 2. You know, you had, like, the top loader and the regular one.
And the Super Nintendo had 2 as well. They had the classic style, and then they had, like, a junior, smaller system. Yeah.
So, like, the Genesis went through 3 waves, and then the Saturn came, and at the time, it was still pretty big, because Nights into Dreams was fucking phenomenal. I remember that 3D controller. I remember we had a PlayStation. We also had a Saturn. I remember definitively playing the Saturn more than I did the PlayStation initially. Because then, after the Saturn, things kind of started to slow down for Sega. We ended up getting a Dreamcast as well. Loved the Dreamcast. The VMUs were a fucking genius idea. Had the batteries lasted longer than 10 minutes outside of the controllers. It was like a Tamagotchi.
Yeah.
It was such a fucking innovative idea, and then they shot themselves in the foot.
How did they shoot themselves in the foot with the Dreamcast though? Like what did
Well,
they do though? That one just feels like it was just a product of
kind of
just
their death knell.
bad timing.
Well,
Yeah.
and I think like the cost, like they took a big loss on the consoles. I think for a long time.
Well, because that wasn't the Saturn when they started to die. Anyway,
They did, but they screwed themselves with
Right.
that one because they released it without telling their third-party support that, hey, this system is available now.
yeah. Which Dreamcast, I feel like, was kind of it was already they were already dying, and then Dreamcast released, and they were like, well,
Yeah, but Sega
Nobody
Saturn
cared
came out in
anymore.
1994, and the Dreamcast came out in 1999. I remember that. It was September
Yeah.
9th, 1999, 9999. And it was really, like, I remember kids in school going out and saying, like, oh, they purchased it. But then, again, the PlayStation 2 came out in, like, 2000, in, like, November, winter of 2000, and it just completely just decimated
they
the market.
killed it.
Decimated the market.
Oh yeah.
And I think the Xbox One came out shortly thereafter.
original Xbox,
The
not
original
Xbox.
Xbox, yeah. I'm
just
sorry.
call
The
it the
first. I'm
Xbox.
sorry. The first Xbox.
Xbox Classic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Came out in 2001, shortly thereafter, and they always were just trying to catch up, basically, to the PlayStation 2.
Well, they did a bunch of stuff that definitely like set trends. Like Halo set trends for multiplayer.
Oh,
for
it
quite a
definitely
while.
did. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
for the first
Granted,
person
yeah.
shooter.
Now, Perfect Dark and GoldenEye did it on N64, full 4-player local. Mm-hmm. But like the trend,
It was more of online play.
yeah, the online or the LAN for multiple systems being linked up to play.
Yep.
Then the online stuff to get more stuff. They basically made that much more viable and.
Well, you could tell those systems were designed with multiplayer in mind because it had 4 controller ports.
Yeah.
Whereas PlayStation has only ever had 2.
2. Yeah.
You know, so it's like, and that's kind of where I feel like that's how Xbox has managed to stay ahead of PlayStation in that regard, especially back then, with the fact that it was tailored more to a multiplayer audience.
Yeah.
Whereas PlayStation, it's kind of more of a single player
Yeah.
frame of mind, and now PlayStation's catching up with that idea. Nintendo.
Well, I don't know, because even PS2, there was online. Monster Hunter was online on PS2.
There was. I mean, but was it prevalent here?
There was small. There was small support
In the
for
U.S.,
online.
yeah, I don't know. I know someone that
I
had
mean, it was capable of it,
Yeah.
but it
'Cause
was very, very small.
Even Phantasy Star Online, but remember that was at a time too when internet was really.
But also,
it was still in its
Phantasy Star was also
infancy.
a very different thing because Phantasy Star originally had to pay.
right.
It was a subscription thing. So, like, that kind of hurt it over here. Whereas,
So
like,
was Final Fantasy 11
yeah.
when it released on PS2.
Which is why that one's kind
that one
of
didn't
came and went. It
Yeah.
did terrible.
Yeah.
That one, yeah, they did a bunch of, like, minor charges for a whole bunch of shit on that one, and it killed that game.
I think the closest we've ever seen again to a console
360
wars
PS3.
was the PS3 and 360 because that was when
Sony
the
made a
PlayStation
big
3,
mistake.
yeah, Sony made a humongous mistake with the cost of their system.
And then choosing that unique cell processor.
Yes,
over
choosing
just
that,
using a standard
but
ARM
also
technology.
not having as strong of a library when it originally launched as they did. The Xbox 360 capitalized on that, and it was the only time where I think sales initially were stronger for Xbox than it was for Sony.
Yeah.
But then once Sony hit their stride, once they started releasing it, it went down in price to $400 instead of the $600. They started getting better games. They had the Uncharted series. They had all these other games. Then Sony just they took off, and now it hasn't really been a console wars anymore. PlayStation 4 kind of came and kind of was the one who dominated.
150 something million to like 80 million units.
I'm about to say it's almost double.
And even though I think Nintendo has gotten their second wind with the Switch, I still don't think that it's definitely, I don't know if it's selling the same numbers that the PlayStation 3 or 4 were selling at.
No.
But once the PlayStation 5 comes out, is that going to basically put a nail in Nintendo's coffin, or is it going to be their...
Because if things are to be believed, there is a potential of an updated Switch coming out within the next year or two.
Okay.
That'll be a much stronger thing with better screen and battery life, able to do more.
Gotcha.
So we'll see.
Yeah.
But
still, it doesn't feel like a console war at that point. It's like you're already pledging your allegiance to Sony or Nintendo. It's like there's no like...
Yeah.
They're not battling for your dollars, basically.
Well, and I would say it's more so a battle between Sony and Microsoft.
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, Nintendo couldn't give less of a shit about the console
Nintendo
wars.
just wants to do their own thing.
No, and Kevin and I had this conversation a little bit on the way here, is the fact that Sony and Xbox, PlayStation and Xbox have been battling out since the PS3 and 360 generation.
No, battling it out since the PlayStation 2 Xbox version. Yeah.
Well,
no, I'd say
it kicked into higher gear in PS3.
PS3.
Yes,
I'd say
it did.
PS3 360 is when they actually started direct headbutting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I mean, I grew up with the PS2 and an Xbox. I would say I played PS2 more because PS2 had RPGs. The Xbox had a few, but really not so much, and Halo's really not my thing.
Again, it came down to the fact that I did play a lot of Xbox, but
yeah, but I was playing like old Knights of the Old Republic and like Jade Empire.
I liked the controller better. It was more comfortable
Please
with a PlayStation.
tell me not the Duke.
The big fucking heavy ass controller.
The original controller called the Duke was that massive one
for the
Xbox.
No, the PlayStation. I liked the controller for the PlayStation a lot more. It was comfortable because that's what I was used to. Because I came from a PlayStation 1 and then going to like an Xbox. It wasn't the Duke. It was. I think it was the second. It was a smaller. It was a smaller one, and then I was actually fortunate enough that I think that's another reason why I played it a lot. Is Mad Catz made a wireless controller for the Xbox that was very similar to like what the Wavebird was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, except for the IR blaster one.
Yeah,
it had the black like circle in the middle. I remember those, the Mad Catz ones.
Yeah, well,
they were IR blasters, not actual wireless.
Mm-hmm. No, whatever it was, but it was a lot more comfortable to hold it though, because it was smaller and I could deal with it better.
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, the PlayStation 2 obviously beat Xbox. Oh, did they? They did, right?
Oh, they did. Oh.
Because then, like you said, PS3...
I think the PlayStation 2 actually may be the best-selling system of all
Still
time.
is.
That wouldn't surprise me, actually.
So PlayStation 2 definitely won
Considering
that
that's considered the golden age
the original,
of gaming anyway.
Yeah, the original Xbox doesn't even make the list.
I'm not surprised.
No.
Because original Xbox... And
again, they were trying to establish themselves at that point.
Well, not only that, but it's the argument that I have. So my younger brother... Xbox fanboy to no end. He owns PlayStations, but he's always
hardcore. He's
Xbox,
always been an Xbox guy.
Always has been. Mm-hmm. But Xbox has never had the library to back it up. PlayStation does, which is why PlayStation does as well as it does. Xbox to me has always felt like a niche system. You have your first-person shooters that obviously and rightfully so. They play a million times better on an Xbox. Mm-hmm. That's never been a debate. Those people who say first-person shooters play better on a PlayStation,
they're lying.
You're full of shit.
They're lying. Yep.
Yeah, you're full of shit. I've experienced both. I'm not a professional, but they do.
No,
they run better. They
you've
play
got
better.
Gears of War. I mean, they know how to do first-person shooters better.
Yeah. And like the Xbox systems themselves. While spec-wise, yes, they are more powerful than anything PlayStation has ever really put out, your hardware doesn't mean shit if you don't have things to play on it. Mm-hmm. And especially, I would say, not even in RPG sense, but the common gamer are going to find more things to play on a PlayStation than you will an Xbox at this point. And the reason why I say Nintendo's really not even concerned is because whether you have a PlayStation or an Xbox, chances are you have a Switch as well. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's never I have an Xbox and a PlayStation. It's excuse me. It's never I have a PlayStation and then I will go out and buy an Xbox, because why would you? There's everything you can play on the Xbox is basically on the PlayStation, other than like what exclusives
They're
are on
their
the
first
one.
tier.
Like,
Yeah, their first tier
Gears
exclusives. Yeah.
and
But
what the fuck is even on the one?
Halo, Gears, Forza, Ori was
Forza.
technically originally on.
Was and is no longer.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of what else is on that most people would play.
And you're more knowledgeable about the Xbox than I am because you have one in your home.
We have 2 Xbox Ones.
Yeah, and so I mean you would know the library, and you're even struggling to think of games.
Mm-hmm.
Like that just shows you right there, like how bad their library really is. And like you had said, Ori and Will of the Wisps is
Or was it Blind Forest was the first one?
Ori and the Blind Forest. Yes, Will of the Wisp is the that's the sequel. Ori and the Blind Forest was a timed exclusive. And that's kind of where this latest generation, why you really can't even say console wars are even a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because there really is nothing exclusive anymore. It's a timed exclusive.
Short of
Even
first party titles are about the only ones.
and to be honest, it doesn't surprise me when first parties even end up on other systems.
Well, you'll never actually see Microsoft, like a Microsoft division's developed game will never be on a PlayStation.
I suppose that's true.
And same with the Sony Entertainment division.
Same with a Nintendo game.
Like-
I mean, Breath of the Wild, you're never going to see on another system.
But like, yeah, like okay. Now, if you want to say, well, if it's on PC as well, then it's not an exclusive. Well, then okay, yeah. Basically, the entire Xbox library is on there, and certain PlayStation, like Horizon's going to be ported to PC. Granted, I heard
Yeah.
it was ported terribly.
Well,
but
I know Persona 4 was recently put on PC now, and
yeah,
and that always cracks me up. These people who are the PC elitists who complain when games aren't on PC.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's I don't
See-
know. That's a whole other conversation.
See, to me, PC has always been kind of like a niche thing.
Yeah.
well,
it's
actually,
not.
it's got some of the highest. That's one of where game developers tend to make some of their most money, though, because like through Steam and then like the Epic Store, they get a better percentage of the sale because it is pure digital on PC.
Oh, sure.
There's no
sure.
overhead.
There-
With physical
yeah,
media.
exactly.
So they get the better stuff. That's why you tend to see sales more frequently on PC is because they make better money there. They can afford to do it.
Ah.
Whereas like consoles, it's $60 on the store. It's going to be $60 for the next like year or two.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas PC, it'll be $60 and then it'll drop to like 30 on the Steam for like the Steam summer sales and shit like that within a year. So
Yeah, it's just it. The reason I thought about this topic even for today was the fact that the PS5 did its announcement. What was that?
On Wednesday.
On Wednesday,
Yeah.
which was
pre-orders will be on September 17th or whatever, and then
What was Wednesday? September 14th? Something
yeah.
like that. I don't know. Just to date this episode, because Lord knows it takes me forever to edit these. But and of course, all the fanboys came out of the woodworks. Like you just all the people bashing the PS5 and PS5 fans bashing the Xbox fans for shit, and it cracks me up because they act like it's Genesis and Super Nintendo all over again. And dude, it's not.
It's really not.
No, and it came down to they're bashing each other over specs of the system, which we've clearly established mean nothing.
okay, I gotta point this out to people. If your only metric is saying, oh look, the Xbox has like a 3.8 gigahertz processor and it has 12 teraflops of power, unless you actively know what that means and you're a developer, shut the fuck up. It does not mean anything. It is not a metric of anything. If a developer is amazing with 10 teraflops, they'll do more with that 10 teraflops than a shitty developer will with 1,000. So it doesn't matter what the specs like that are, unless if you can take advantage of it. Not to mention is, yeah, okay, it has that raw capability of that, but then you have to factor in the system operating cost, like the overlay, any of that sort of stuff. It all takes away from your system power. So you're not actually going to be hitting that 100% peak at 100% of the time. It just doesn't happen.
No,
Yeah.
which has always been my biggest argument. The specs of your system really don't mean shit because nothing is going to be put out on your system that's going to take 100% advantage of its capabilities. It couldn't.
No.
Your system would probably it would implode.
Well,
Because your system is not built to run at 100% capability for extended periods of time.
No, it's not.
Which is I'm just speculating here, but I have a feeling that's why, like, in the PS3 and 360 era, a lot of the systems failed. Like, ended up crashing.
They also had very, very poor heat
ventilating.
control.
Yeah, ventilating.
Yeah. Like, that was the biggest problem with those systems is they were doing all of this power, it was generating all this heat. They didn't have proper cooling systems to get rid of the heat.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's just, like, that's the part that always gets my goat when people talk about the specs of their system. I'm like, dude, none of the games are ever going to hit your... I would say they won't even hit 75% of the capabilities of your system. So your specs are meaningless.
Mm-hmm.
And it got me thinking about, like, people bash Nintendo over the fact that they always put out a quote-unquote inferior system. I mean, look how long it took them to release a system with HDMI, for fuck's sake.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until the Wii U that they had HDMI on their system.
Yeah.
And it didn't need it. Like, that's kind of where, like, Nintendo never really gave a shit.
Yeah.
Nintendo has always been more about the experience of the system and the innovation.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas PlayStation and Xbox, I feel like, only ever go out to rival each other.
Yeah.
What's the biggest and baddest toy we can put on this thing to beat the other one out? Nintendo's just sitting there like, I wonder if this would work. You know, building shit with Legos in the corner. And it's like, cool, I got the fucking Wii Ring thing. Like,
motion controls from the Wii. I think that revolutionized video games.
Yeah,
at that
but they've
point.
basically died off.
No,
it has.
I understand.
Other than
that,
like
but
VR, but VR was already doing it before the Wii was a thing.
But you know it did something when the PlayStation and Microsoft had to try and copycat
exactly
it. With the Kinect, with the Move.
Oh god, the
Jesus
Kinect was
Christ.
terrible, and the Move failed too.
They were.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the idea.
Mm-hmm.
Is the fact that Nintendo couldn't care less about the power of its system because it had a way to back up their shit. They had a library that they knew was going to sell. Like, and they've been more about the games and the experience.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Xbox, what other than like the few titles you said, like what do they really have?
I just remember the when the launch of the Switch was happening, and there was like a billboard or something like that where people were doing like Switch. Their big thing coming out was like Breath of the Wild. PlayStation 4, their big thing coming out was this. Xbox, their big thing coming out, Netflix. It's like,
I remember that.
Netflix support.
Yeah. It's just and that's the kind of shit that just it cracks me up. Like, how can you say there's even console war anymore?
No, there really isn't.
Launch titles are another thing. Like, people are bashing the PS5 for the fact that there are going to be no good launch titles and all this shit. And I'm looking at the history of games that have come out for systems since the NES.
Mm-hmm.
Launch titles have never been strong for most systems.
Yeah.
Other than the few outliers, Nintendo has had, generally speaking,
incredible launch titles.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus Christ. The Switch alone, Breath of the Wild, that could have been the only game you launched on that fucking system for 3 months, and I guarantee
they knew. They knew that game would have lasted players at least 3 to 6 months, so it would have given them an additional 3 to 6 months lead time to develop some more good games, which in that time, Nintendo capitalized because they created some really good stuff after that.
Yeah.
But it kept fans busy with an incredible game.
Yeah, and that's why Nintendo, to me, is, despite the fact that they're always an inferior system spec-wise, they still know what to put on their system. Look at Pokemon. They could have released Pokemon Sword and Shield on the fucking Switch, and I guarantee it would have killed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Zelda did, and what were some of the other games that came out? Just Dance, I think, was a launch title. Yeah.
It was 1-2 Switch, Just Dance 2017,
Bomberman
Skylanders Imagineers, Super Bomberman R, and Breath of the Wild. That's only for the US.
That was all you needed.
That was all you needed.
And
you could have taken 3 of those games off the list.
Could take 4 of them off the list.
Yeah, and I think Shovel Knight was available right away off the eShop.
Maybe off the eShop,
because I remember buying Shovel Knight right away. And it's like, that's killer.
Mm-hmm.
What were launch titles for the PS4?
Actually, in Japan, it launched with I Am Setsuna.
Oh, see, that would have been money right there.
Interesting.
So, let's see. You said PS4.
PS4.
All right. PS4 US launch was Angry Birds Star Wars, Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, which that was a pretty big one.
Yep.
Battlefield 4,
Call
Call of Duty Ghosts,
That was a
FIFA
big one.
14,
Sports title.
an updated version of Injustice: Gods Among Us, Just Dance, Killzone Shadowfall, which was a pretty big announced one. The people are looking forward to that one. Knack, Lego Super Marvel Superheroes, Madden 25, NBA 2K14, Need for Speed Rivals.
A lot of games.
That's a huge launch list.
Skylanders Swap Force, Warframe, and Zumba Fitness.
Jeez.
That was the U.S. I don't know.
Those may have just been like initial. Like,
I don't know what their month, like how many, what their window is.
That
on
could
this,
not have all. Those could not have all come out like all at the same time.
I know
that had to
Killzone
be their
did.
first. That had to be like their first year of games.
I think Assassin's Creed was within like a month or two or something like that. But still,
even that list,
even if we consider a 4 month, say like a 4 or 5 month period, but still,
that's still quite a nice little selection of games.
that's not bad.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't have bought a PS. There was nothing on that list that interested me.
Yeah, me either.
But I mean, if we're going, how many months out do you think? Because wasn't Super Mario Odyssey like 6 months after launch?
About
Yeah. So I mean, Jesus Christ, like just those two games would have killed it.
Because I think what was it? The system, the Switch launched in March, right?
Yes, I believe
and
so.
I want to say that October is when Super Mario Odyssey came out.
That sounds right.
So it was about like 7 months.
Okay. Well, what was the Xbox One's launch list? Here we go. This will be good.
Okay, so it's nearly the same list. Angry Birds, Star Wars, Assassin's Creed 4, Battlefield 4, Call of Duty Ghosts, Dead Rising 3,
okay.
FIFA 14, Fighter Within, Forza Motorsport 5, Just Dance, Lego Marvel Superheroes, Madden 25, NBA 2K14, NBA Live 14, Need for Speed Rivals, Rise Son of Rome, which was a gorgeous game, but wasn't very fun, Skylanders Swap Force, Zoo Tycoon, and Zumba Fitness.
There are so many
they're
titles.
nearly identical.
That was almost, they had literally like 5 different titles.
Dead Rising, Forza, NBA Live, and Rise are like the 4, and Zoo Tycoon, I suppose, were like the 5 Xbox exclusive.
So let me ask you something. Of the PS4 and the 3 and the Xbox One, which one would you have bought?
Based just on these lineups?
Just on
the lineups? I wouldn't have bought either. Yeah, I would have bought the Switch.
Those lineups are horrible.
Yeah.
Like, Black Flag is about the only one, and Killzone are about the only 2 I would have played.
So, like, and it blows my mind that they're battling, that they're getting at each other's throats about launch titles.
Yeah, they're battling themselves.
It's like, have you looked at what these things are launching with? Both, other than, like, those few titles that are exclusive to one or the other, they're identical systems.
Yeah.
There is no reason to buy an Xbox One over a PS4 at that point. The Switch, on the other hand, everything was unique. So, like, let's go back even further. 360, PS3. What were some of the launch titles on those two?
All right.
I guarantee you it's probably a little bit more diverse than the fucking One and PS4.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
Okay, so Sorry, this list is long.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah, I can always cut out the dead space.
Alright. 360, US launch. Amped 3, Call of Duty 2, Condemned Criminal Origins, FIFA 06, Gun, that was a good one. Cameo, Elements of Power.
That one was actually pretty good.
Madden 06, NBA 2K6, NBA Live 06, Need for Speed Most Wanted, NHL 2K6, Perfect Dark Zero, Peter Jackson's King Kong, Project Gotham Racing 3, Quake 4, Ridge Racer 6, Tiger Woods PGA Tour 2006, and Tony Hawk American Wasteland.
It surprises me how many sports titles are available at launch.
There's a lot of sports titles.
So then we jump to PS3, Blazing Angels, Squadrons of World War II, Call of Duty 3, Genji Days of the Blade, Madden NFL 07, Ultimate Alliance, Mobile Suit Gundam Crossfire, NBA 2K7, NHL 2K7, Resistance Fall of Man, Ridge Racer 7, Tiger Woods PGA 07, Tony Hawk Project 8, and Untold Legends Dark Kingdom.
Honestly, that's not even that great
not
of a
that much
lineup
better
either. Yeah.
Like, there are certain titles that I'm sure people would love.
Ultimate Alliance.
Clearly, we were not the audience for these systems.
No.
So, but there's nothing on those systems that would have made waves like, see, and the one thing that stands out to me, all right, Xbox exclusives, all right, Gears 5 or whatever, that was the latest one, right? 5, 4, 4 or 5?
I
Which
couldn't
one
tell
was
you what number
5.
they're on.
I think it was 5.
it? Gears 5, cool. Like, I'm sure it's a great game. Not our style. But you have Gears 5 and Forza. Gears 5, I actually remember, had quite a bit of media to it.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that was actually a pretty big buzz, because that franchise is actually pretty big.
Mm-hmm.
But then you had the PS5's launch titles. They talked about Final Fantasy 16. Jesus Christ, you could not escape news about Final Fantasy 16 on social media for the past few days. You open up your phone or whatever you're looking
It
at.
doesn't help I share.
16, 16, 16, 16, 16. Like, that's all you saw.
Mm-hmm.
So how can you say there's no launch titles for, or there's no good titles on the PS5 or the PS5 when there's what you're not going to see those kinds of those kinds of waves from a Forza game.
No.
Your feed is not getting oversaturated with Forza. You know what I mean? Like, and that's kind of why I feel like, and I stick by the statement, this will be the last generation Xbox puts out. I think they are done with consoles past the Series X, because I think PS5 is going to completely crush them. I think they're going to go the way of Sega. They're doing only software. They will no longer do hardware.
To be honest, I also think Microsoft has really shot themselves in the foot this generation. Their big statement of, well, you know, if we're putting something out, we want you to be able to play it across the entire Microsoft brand. So for the first, 2 years, unless they're going to change their stance, their stuff has to be playable from the Xbox One all the way up through the Series X.
Oh, you mean classic Xbox?
No,
Yes.
no.
Just the one?
It's so if they're developing a brand new game, it has to be playable on the Xbox One,
Okay.
the One X, the One S, the Series X, and the Series S. So all brand new games have to play on that entire platform.
Why would you do that?
Because they don't want to force people to have to upgrade right away. Now, don't get me wrong, Sony kind of fucked it up too.
They do the same shit.
Horizon the Horizon Forbidden West and Spider-Man Miles Morales are both launching on PS4 and PS5.
Yep.
Granted, in Halo Infinite for Xbox, my guess is that these games started development on current gen, and then they were given the dev kits for next gen and ported them over. So, a couple of games being cross-generational makes sense. I'm not going to bash either of them for that.
Right. They've been doing that since PS3, PS4.
But saying that, okay, I'm developing a new Series X game, well, it has to be able to play on the original Xbox One? Why would you do that?
That's such a step backwards and a hindrance.
Well, not just that. Not just the Series S. Okay, the reason they're able to sell it for $300 is because it's only capable of outputting 1440p, so it's got a weaker GPU. It's going to be able to play the Series X games, but you're going to be playing them at a lower resolution with less graphical fidelity and probably lower load times.
Oh, God.
Whereas the Sony digital version, it's what, $400?
I believe so, yeah.
But guess what? It's a full-powered PS5. It's not a cut-down version of the system.
Basically, the only difference is a disk drive between the two systems.
Yep.
Yeah.
Whereas, like I said, Microsoft is going with a weaker, cheap system. It's the difference going between buying a high-end PC or buying a low-end PC. If you've got the money and it's a $200, a $200 or $100 so whatever dollar. So we'll just say $200 difference. Why wouldn't you just wait a little bit longer to get the more powerful thing than buying the cheap shit and have to upgrade later anyways?
Yeah, I see what you mean.
It will hold back all of their developments. That means, so all multi-platform games that are going to be, across, now have to develop for a much larger, broad, base level, so they have to develop for the minimum power possible.
Yeah.
Which is going to hold stuff back, which is a bad idea.
It's going to take developers that much longer to put out a game.
That's what Sega did. I mean, even back then, in the beginning, they had all of those different add-ons. They had the 32X, they had the Sega CD, they had the Sega Genesis was still their main console, and they were trying to develop games, across all platforms. You had Virtua Fighter, which came out for the Genesis, for the 32X.
Sonic 3D Blast.
Sonic 3D
was
Blast
on Genesis and Saturn.
Yeah. So and yeah, and then even on the Saturn as well too. Once you had that, so it's like, and what happened to Sega? As
Like, it's
same thing.
Like, okay, I understand, like, saying, yes, we want the cross-generational for the beginning, because, systems at the beginning, they sell out really, really fast between the people who die hard want them and scalpers.
Which seems to be a bigger thing now than it's ever been, is the scalping.
But then you also have the other problem. What is the most common thing that has happened since the PS3 360 with the launch, the first wave of any system?
Since the PS2.
Oh, it even goes that?
Yeah.
Okay. But, like, what's...
PS2 had that many issues at launch?
Sure
Really?
did. Sure did.
So, like, what's the most common
Yeah.
thing? There is hardware and software issues that have to be worked out.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, the 360 was notorious for dying.
God, the red ring.
Yep.
The PS3 had the yellow light issues for a long time where their hard drives were dying. So it's like, why would you ever buy First Wave, like, and they sell out this way? It's like, yeah, be excited for the system, but don't just jump at it this way.
The only system I've ever bought at launch, and I've mentioned this before, is the Switch. And I've literally had zero issues. I love it, and it still runs like a fucking champ.
Which pisses me off, because mine's a year after, and I have fucking terrible drift.
Joy-Con drift. Yeah, me too. Me too.
And I'm outside of the window, I would have to pay Nintendo to replace them.
Oh, really?
You might as well just get new Joy-Cons.
Yeah,
at that point.
more often than not, I play with the Pro controllers.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I play with the Pro controller.
I will say my Joy-Cons very rarely ever leave my system. I keep it. I use the Pro controllers too. But yeah, that seems to be the biggest issue. Is their first wave systems always get buggy because.
Well, it's because they're trying to rush production
To be the first one out.
Yeah, and now, okay,
to get it out for the holiday season.
Is it also possible that they put better engineering and stuff into these new ones that are coming out? Yeah, sure, it's possible, but you can't account for any manufacturing defects that you didn't catch.
Yeah.
You can't account for, maybe like a hard drive failure, like, because there was something going on, or damaging shipping and stuff like that. You can't account for these things for the first while.
Yeah.
So it's just like, so they're like, and the biggest like part of the console war outside the fan bases currently is the news outlets that are sharing every little bit of thing, and then the PR teams on Twitter. For like I shared the one for
like 12-year-old kids.
Shared the one for Xbox where they were like, there's no mixed confusion about our message. This is the date you can pre-order. We'll let you know when stuff goes up. Well, it wasn't Sony who broke that. It was Walmart's problem. Walmart was like, oh, by the way, pre-orders, we're not going to make you wait. You can do it now. So all the other retailers jumped on it.
Which is
so
funny
now
because
Sony's getting flack for retailers being greedy assholes.
Which is funny because that's not the first time Walmart has done that, where they've jumped the gun on pre-orders or something that was supposed to go on sale on a certain date. They just say, screw that, we have it, so put it out.
My big question with this, too, is will Walmart now face repercussions? Because selling a game before street date is actually a violation of their contracts.
It's illegal.
They can get in trouble for it. Does that apply to pre-orders as well, or no?
Well, no. I just don't
cancel pre-orders.
I just don't think that Walmart anything's going to happen to them.
You think they're too big for Sony or anything?
They're way too big. That's
the only thing.
They need to have Walmart so that they can basically sell their games.
Yeah, but Amazon and Best Buy sell.
They do. But Walmart is so well established that they cannot lose them as supporters. So they basically have their balls in a vice. And
digital is also becoming bigger, so...
Yeah. That's true, actually. Who knows, even, because... Oh, actually, I had a question about something. So the difference between the two PS5 models...
It's just the Blu-ray.
It's just the player?
The Ultra HD Blu-ray disc,
the memory in it is not different.
Nope, everything's the same.
What they should have done... Instead of having a price difference with a cheaper system without the drive,
it should have been a bigger.
It should have been the same price, but without the disc drive, put a bigger hard drive in it. Because it's going to be a pure digital system anyway. Why wouldn't you just put a bigger hard drive in the system, make it the same price as the physical?
Something about the manufacturing. The reason they went with the 825 gig versus a full 1 terabyte is something about like it's the perfect balance between cost and production. So for that style hard drive, and now I'm assuming like a year or two down the line, it's going to be cheaper to manufacture that particular style. So
It wouldn't surprise me.
we'll probably either see an increase in system storage capability or a drop in price.
Yeah.
Or the Pro system will come out.
Oh, I'm sure.
That's another reason I'm iffy about buying the new system.
You're gonna buy one anyway.
No,
When Outriders comes out, you and I are gonna be buying systems and fucking playing.
Only if I'm on a corner sucking dick to get the money for it.
Put them lips to you, son.
Sucky $5.
God,
I warrant at least 6.
you're high class. And actually, I was thinking about this. The reason like the PS3 and the 360 had so many issues with their systems is I wonder if it was due in part to the fact that technology was kind of doing that
leap.
next leap
Yeah.
to where they still hadn't quite perfected that technology yet. Because, I mean, you notice, like, these jumps in technology we have with every console is maybe at that point, technology was still at that like, transition between being established and being, better than the previous. That I think maybe that's why that generation had so many technical issues. So maybe this next generation won't quite have it because we still haven't made that leap yet.
Well, and newer technologies also tends to draw less power than the older stuff, so they're more efficient, that's why, like I was saying, like the difference in teraflops doesn't matter because like 10 teraflops in 2020 is vastly different than 10 teraflops in 2010.
Yeah.
They are on two completely different scales at that point.
Yeah.
So
it's just it's fascinating to me, like, to think about the consoles in terms of where technology was.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Well, and I find it funny too because like I follow PC side technology as well. So like they, the Series X and PS5 were showing off their graphics, and they're like, there's this whole thing of, oh wow, these are all the next gen graphics, and then there's these memes going around of like Nvidia coming out and being like, hold my coffee, and then announcing their new line of graphics cards, which are ridiculously amazing.
Yeah. It's and it's also one of those things where people have to realize that the cards they're going to put out are not something a common person's going to buy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Nvidia?
Yeah.
No, they're the most common market share.
I'm sure it is, but like somebody like Paul and I, we don't care.
No.
It only applies to like PC, the gamers.
Exactly.
Like,
the PC elitists. I say elitist as if it's a bad thing. I mean, it's the people who are exclusively PC.
There are console elitists too.
Yeah,
so.
I know.
Because they're always, exclusivity is like but you also have choice on PC, whereas you don't with consoles.
Right. But I feel like graphics cards in terms of power and stuff, that's more of on a console, that's a everyman. That's what his graphic card is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like Nvidia to say, "Oh, look what ours can do."
Well, I don't think it was
totally different.
I don't think it was Nvidia that put the memes out. I think that was like the PC fans.
But it's just funny to me, like that mentality, because it's like, well, it's just like high-end PCs. I'm not going to go out and buy a high-end PC because why would I? But somebody who is a PC gamer is going to be like, well, that's because that's what I like. Of course I'm going to buy that. Like, that's huge to me.
Yeah.
But, like, the PS5 graphics look incredible to me.
There's also a subsection of, like, PC people that they don't just like playing the games, but they do like messing with the hardware. So that the increases in power, being able to like overclock and do the liquid cooling, that sort of hands-on build. It's like a person who likes customizing their car.
Yeah.
Like, that's not for us, but there are those that love doing that, the hands-on. Not only, I can get this performance and then go use it, but I like doing this work on it myself. You really can't do that with the consoles.
No, you really can't. And I'm all right with that because I personally, one thing that triggers me, if you want to bring it full circle, modding to systems irritates me for some reason. I don't know why. I mean, you're free to do with your system what you want. That's fine. But when I see, like, the modded systems...
Depends on what you're doing to mod it.
That shit irritates me.
If you're doing the mods that allow you to cheat while you're online, fuck you. But if it's to get around shitty versions of, software, like, locking and stuff, like region locking, then do it. Yeah. Region locking is stupid to begin with.
I agree. Region locking is dumb. And in this day and age, that shouldn't even be a thing.
No.
But that's one thing that I always like. Well, it was a big thing when like the NES Classic and the SNES the mini version.
They were buying them to mod them so that they
Yeah.
could put like 700 games on it.
Or they do it even with like iPhones and stuff. People will buy like 4 or 5 iPhones, break 3 or 4 in the process before they get it to mod it correctly to do shit.
Yeah.
That pisses me off.
Yeah.
Because like in the case of the NES and SNES Classics or Minis, those were already hard to find. But now you have these assholes. I just want the system. I just want to play it.
Yeah.
And you have these dickheads who are buying them to essentially break them, to mod them to do what they want it to do.
Yeah.
If you want to do that kind of shit, make one yourself. Let me have my system. You know what I mean? That's where I kind of get pissed off about it. Is when you're basically depriving somebody of having something the way it was originally intended because you want to fuck with it.
Well, what was that system that we saw at a video game place? It's like normally they go for like $190, but that's because like people buy them to mod them.
The PSP Go.
The PSP Go.
PSP Go was a colossal flop.
I wanted one though.
But that's my point with the PSP Go, is that it wasn't really a popular system, but it has only become a popular system after the fact because of the possibilities of modding it. So now, your chance of finding a PSP Go just to have a PSP Go, like the system itself, you're
shit out of luck.
You're shit out of luck because the population is less and less and less because there are so many more people who are modding them.
PS Go is also a weirder thing because it was a purely digital handheld.
Yeah.
Oh, so you can't
It was
really...
only downloaded titles.
Oh, so you can't really download it anymore.
The PlayStation Store for PSP is closed as far as I know.
No, I don't think it is. Because I just downloaded stuff off of the store.
You can still access stuff that you've purchased already.
No, I can still buy stuff too.
Oh, can you?
I think so.
Oh, okay. I thought it was closed already.
No, not quite yet.
But it was a purely digital, so you couldn't use the PSP UMDs on it. You had to buy digital. That's the whole reason people liked that one as much as they did.
And it was a stupid idea considering they had to use proprietary memory cards, which were
PSP was the
I thought PSP was
the Vita's the proprietary.
The Vitas, yes. You say that every time.
I know.
Too.
I always get the two confused.
Here, the PSP used the
it was the
PSP Go.
sticks. It was the weird sticks.
the stick duos.
Yeah, they were very goofy.
They were used in like cameras and stuff like that.
Is that so? PSP Go and the PSP or the PSP was like basically the same thing, but
the same thing, but one was
PSP
digital.
Go was only digital. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Huh.
Well, and then
Actually, it was the reason I wanted a PSP Go is because it was a better layout for the controller.
Yeah.
Because the one thing the PSP kind of sucked at was the stick was in a weird spot. It was in a lower left corner, and it was very awkward.
Yeah, that's weird.
So the PSP Go, it had like a flip. It flipped up, kind of like the old phone. Remember his old phone?
Yeah.
It was like that,
Yeah.
and then it had 2 sticks.
Oh,
It was
okay.
really cool. It was a really cool system. But that's something that killed me.
Well, and then so they also had the memory stick duos where you could put 2 of the micro cards in at a much higher capacity for cheaper. That allowed you to have massive storage on the PSP Go.
Oh, okay.
So you could get entire the entire PSP library on the PSP Go. You could have the NES up through PS2 on the thing.
On the thing.
And that's why people like modding it. But yeah,
I don't know how well everything ran, but I know.
Well, PSP was a pretty strong system.
I know
at the time.
NES and Super NES and stuff ran well on it, but I don't know about PlayStation and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
No, PlayStation would have because there were some PS1 games on the store at the time. So yeah,
I had Threads of Fate. I had
Curse of Eve and
Grandia.
stuff was on there. Xenogears.
The PSP, and here kind of it harkens back to my thing with Nintendo and inferior quality, or not in quality, inferior
Choosing
systems.
Yeah.
PSP and the Vita, by all means, should have crushed the Game Boy. The Game Boy line should have died at the SP. No, not SP. The DS.
Yeah.
Because that was about the time the PSP came out, right?
Yeah.
The PSP was stronger. Everything looked better. It came down to support. Sony never supported the PSP and the Vita here the way it should have been, which is why the Vita and the PSP died off.
Which is funny because in Japan they were huge.
Oh yeah, mobile market over there is
In
we think
Japan-
ours is good. Theirs is like 10 times better.
In Japan, Monster Hunter, the only way to play the series was on PSP for quite some time.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
So, like, every new version was the PSP, and you'd get on, like, there was, like, videos of people, you'd get on trains, there'd be old business guys sitting on the train playing PSP Monster Hunter on their way to work in the morning.
That's why a lot of those like iconic series, like that kind of style, that Monster Hunter style, where it's online multiplayer.
Yeah.
You had Monster Hunter, you had God Eater, Lord of Arcana, Tokiden was Vita. Like you had all these series that spun off, and essentially followed the Monster Hunter formula of you create a party, you do a mission. Like that was a thing.
Hunt some big boss creature, make new
Yeah.
equipment out of its body parts.
That's
So-
that's the Monster Hunter system.
Yeah.
I mean, and that the mobile market was huge over there. So by all means, the PSP and the Vita should have killed off Game Boy years ago.
Well,
But-
Vita, they fucked themselves with the Vita.
Yes, they did.
Because, well, I know we've talked about this before, but like the PSP, you could use any memory stick duo on the PSP. It wasn't locked down. That's why people were able to get the massive cards to do, like mod the PSP. That was another flaw. Is it was really easy to mod.
Yeah.
There was no really good security on it to prevent it. So they were
Not
getting
as bad as the Dreamcast.
Yeah, okay.
Dreamcast, you could basically just copy your fucking games.
yeah from in a P just copy
Yeah.
from the PC. But so you could use any memory card you wanted. While when Vita came out, they compensated too hard to the other direction. You had to buy proprietary memory cards that were way overpriced for the amount of space you got.
So like a 32 gig card that would normally be in like a camera, I think around at that
50,
time was like
60
50, 60 bucks.
like $100.
There's we're like $80 to $100
Oh my
for the
God.
same gigabytes. So it was completely stupid. It
That's
blew your
terrible.
mind that
Yeah,
you're spending an
that's-
extra $30, $40 for the same amount of space.
Yeah. And because
It
of the way
was
they
dumb.
had stuff manufactured, third-party card developers couldn't make memory cards for the system
Oh,
that
wow.
worked.
It wouldn't recognize it.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's basically it was kind of greed. Had
Yeah.
kinda taken-
Well, and like I understand needing.
Trying to block piracy.
Yeah, they had to try to block piracy because they were bleeding too much from it.
Look at
Which
the
is part of the reason why they gave up on the market over here.
look at the whole the issue we run into when we try to do anything PS3 or Vita related. It has that DRCM, whatever, digital rights copy
Yeah,
thing.
where we had to go through the splitter.
Yeah, it has that chip in it that basically locks out any form of streaming
Oh,
or any
gotcha.
form of trying
Recording.
to record
to
it.
record it. Yeah.
Yeah, because they were trying to prevent people from doing that kind of
Ah.
shit. It was at a time that I understood it because, like I'd said, the Dreamcast fucked everything up in the fact that you could just basically burn the games
Well,
and
and
run them.
I don't know if you guys remember, but what was it Bleem? I think it was for PC.
I have no idea.
You could take PS1 games, put them in a PC, and it played them.
Oh, interesting.
I remember that actually. Now that
Software
now that you
Etc.
mention it.
used to sell it.
Yeah.
It used to be a big seller back in the day, and not all of them ran like super well, but
But they
it,
ran though.
I think it
Yeah.
was Bleem.
That's weird. I haven't thought of
yeah.
that, and yeah, I remember that.
Oh my God, I do remember that.
Yep. So like
Oh,
it was
wow.
it was released for. It was software you could buy for your PC, then just take PlayStation games, put them in, and play them on your PC.
Crazy.
This is where a lot of the PS1 like emulators and stuff got their start.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised.
It,
It wouldn't shock me
doesn't
something that
surprise
came
me.
before, but
Yeah. But yeah, it's just Nintendo with the Game Boy. It's always been hardware wise an inferior product. I mean, were the graphics on the DS and 3DS really all that great? Not really.
No.
When you look like if you've ever if you ever actually played a Vita,
No.
I should have you just try a game on my Vita sometime. You would be amazed how great the it basically looks like a PS3.
well,
I've
he's
heard-
seen you play the Vita TV.
yeah, but that's
Yeah.
I suppose that's true.
It's the same
But
power the Vita has, just outputting to your TV.
But I've heard that the they released a Uncharted game called The Golden Abyss on the PS Vita, and I've heard like the game looks incredible.
Wasn't that
really
put into one of the
does.
collections?
It may have been. They may have made a collection out of
Yeah.
it.
Like the Vita, for some reason, that screen, everything's gorgeous. Like I don't know what it
I
is.
think it's an OLED.
That could be. I think it was OLED, which is it's an incredible screen.
Yeah.
But and you go try to go back to like play a DS game, and you're like,
Ooh.
This is some grainy ass shit.
It's like jumping from like PS3 or 360 to N64.
Yeah,
Oh,
pretty much.
God.
It's crazy, like the graphical difference between the two.
Mm-hmm.
And you think about it, and you're like, how did this ever lose?
Not to
Like,
mention
how
having
did
amazing
this not-
games like God Eater.
How did this not beat
Mm-hmm.
the Game Boy? And it comes down to library.
Yeah, it was library.
And support. And,
Yep.
and the fact that Nintendo, when they go all in, they fucking go all in.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the Wii U. They went all fucking in. Didn't work, but at least they did it.
Yeah.
Whereas Sony half-assed the PSP.
Well,
They half-assed
and I also
the Vita.
wonder how much of it is a perception thing too. So, say you're buying for a kid. Are you going to buy the one that looks a bit more, I hate to say it this way, but like childlike and user-friendly the way the DS and stuff of them were, versus holding a PSP next to it and being like, oh, it uses like little mini CDs, they're going to do this, whereas this is a cart. So for a certain portion of the audience buying them, it was largely a perception thing too.
And I suppose we had mentioned this too, is Nintendo's so recognizable.
Yes.
How many of the parents bought the
Oh,
Game
look,
Boy
it's a
for their
Mario
kids
game for
because
a kid.
I remember
Mm-hmm.
playing the brick when I was a kid. You know, so maybe that could be too.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Well, and then I also think, like, yeah, with the library too, the PSP was definitely targeted at like our generation that grew up with playing games.
that's true.
The types of games that were put on there were definitely more slanted toward, not to the, ooh, we're trying to be edgy, but more towards the, we're growing with our audience and doing the mature.
The grown-up audience,
Yes.
as opposed to... Yeah, I can see that.
So, like I said,
some of the
it's-
wasn't there a Little Big Planet on there, too?
Yeah,
On the
well, and then
Patapon.
there were a couple stuff like that, but like the majority wasn't.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, it's fascinating to me to look at the two and to be like, how did the Vita or the PSP ever lose
Yeah.
to the Game Boy when you go based on just that? You know what I mean? Like, and again, comes down to support, because I'd say my Game Boy library is double what the Vita and the PSP library is.
See, mine was too, but I also I played my Vita more still.
I kind of did too.
Same
Like,
with PSP. I had 3DS and like a DS and stuff like that, but other than like the Castlevania games, there was nothing I wanted to play.
Yeah, I played a lot of
The occasional RPGs, and then I'd beat them, and then just go right back to my PSP.
So it's fascinating to me, and that's why I feel like console wars. I don't know.
It's not what it used to be.
It's not what it used to be, and I bet you social media too has a big thing about that,
Oh,
because
yeah.
there was nothing quite like Jesus Christ, flipping through a magazine and seeing that giant
Exactly.
Genesis does what Nintendo doesn't, or Nintendo
When Nintendo don't.
excuse me.
Thank you.
And and you see those ads whereas now, like, you see it everywhere. You almost can't escape the ads, whether it's on television or YouTube or fucking your Facebook, Twitter, whatever the fuck. Like, you just see it everywhere.
Yeah.
So it's, I don't know. I feel like the console wars are kind of a thing of the past. Whether these fan people think it is or not, it's dead.
I mean, you're always going to have that portion of the fan base that it will fervently like defend what they've chosen,
And-
because for some reason their identity is tied to the company.
Yeah, and I think,
don't understand that.
And I think that's the difference between the console wars of then and the supposed console wars of now. Is it's not really a console wars. It's a preference.
It's a way of
wars.
stirring the fan base.
It's
basically.
literally it's a preference wars, because I think that there's really not a war between the consoles anymore. It's a war between the fan base, and certain fans saying this is what our machine can do, and then the other fans going, no, this is what we can do, yours is sucky and all this stuff. It was more so back then about the companies trying to pump up their own brand. Now it's just people basically just saying, I
Mine's better.
support PlayStation.
I'm
and
right,
it's-
you're wrong.
and
Get
it's
off my
better.
playground.
And it's better, yeah.
In a parallel, it's almost like Apple and Android.
Basically.
iPhones and
Yeah.
And Android phone is the same kind of mentality.
Yeah.
Like, I have an iPhone, you guys have Android. Mm-hmm. I like my phone.
That's because we made the right choice.
I like Android, but it's only because I learned on an Android before
Yeah.
I even saw an iPhone.
Yeah,
I
and
don't know how to use an iPhone because I've never really used it before.
It works almost identical.
for the most
For the
part.
most part, yeah.
I mean, there are some differences, but it's one of those things too. It's like recommending a car. Everybody has either a good experience or a bad experience with the same car.
Yep.
Phones are the same way. I've heard stories from people who had iPhones and absolutely hated it. It crashed. It had battery issues. This. And then someone else who had the same... Dude, I've literally had no issues with this. But on an Android, I had this, and this. So it's like... It's almost just... It's your own luck versus just what you prefer.
Yeah.
I know Apple or an iPhone is considered what Kevin calls dumb technology. It's technology for people who don't like to do shit to their stuff.
Oh,
It can come right out of the box. I like what it does.
It's safe technology for the technology illiterate.
There you go.
That's me.
Well, you're Android, so you're not that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, see, no,
Yeah. Android is so tinkerable.
Oh.
Android is very customizable in what you can
Yes.
do.
Whereas iPhones really are not.
You're locked to what
Yes.
Apple
Yeah.
wants.
Which I'm fine with. My phone does fantastic. But I've also found over the years that people who tend to fuck with their shit have more issues with their crap than people who don't.
That's true. That is true.
I don't know what you're talking about.
It's you and my sister-in-law both like to fuck with computers.
No comment.
You two have more issues with computers than anyone I've ever met.
This is not true. Every computer we have that you touch fucks up. So shut up.
That's different because they're hand-me-down computers that I touch and things fuck up on them.
You still touched it. That's the common denominator.
And you're the one who fixes them, and that's why they're fucked up.
Or maybe I fix them only enough to where you touch it to fuck it up, so I don't get pushed out completely.
There you go.
You keep me illiterate, so I always need you. That doesn't sound familiar.
No, that's not familiar at all. Stop giving it 30%.
But yes, again, for anybody listening, this is just our opinion. We're PS5. At least I'm a PS5 person.
I'm PS5 PC usually.
You're going to be, you mean?
I'm going to be PS5. I'm a PlayStation kid. Like Xbox, we're not the audience. Clearly, we're not the audience.
360 was the only generation I would have picked them, and that's the only generation I did. But that was also a combination of that's where people I was playing, the games I was playing at the time were at, and it's what I wanted at the time.
Yeah.
Borderlands ran so much better over there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, like I have a PS3 and I ended up buying a 360 for its exclusives.
Yep.
I will never buy an Xbox One. There's no reason for me to. There is nothing exclusive on an Xbox One that even closely piques my interest. Series X is looking going to be the same way. I don't think I will ever own another Xbox past the 360 because there's no point.
Yeah.
But, again, I'm not the audience. I'm an RPG guy, and the Xbox never really has had a forefront of RPG.
It's very Western focused.
Very much so. Very much so. So that's kind of where we stand. Whereas my younger brother, he's Xbox through and through, but he's the Call of Duty kind of fan base.
He literally buys every one.
He buys every single one. Call of Duty. He loved Titanfall when that was a thing. He loves, he likes that kind of shit. That's fine. You can love that. I mean, everybody loves it. It's got its market. It's a huge market.
Preference. That's your preference.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with it.
So, I mean, that's just our opinion. If you're an Xbox guy and you hear us shitting on Xbox, well...
Let us know your thoughts.
Yeah, let us know your
honestly, we're like Andy is trying to say, is that we may tend to go towards the PlayStation side, but we don't have a problem whatsoever with the Xbox or any of that line.
No.
It's just not our cup of tea.
It's
just not. Nothing's wrong with it. There's good games that people love on it, but it's just nothing that has really caught our fancy.
My only thing will be like complaints about any of the systems usually is stupid decisions that the companies themselves make.
Oh, absolutely.
There could be some. I mean, all
three of them are guilty of it.
All companies make some
through.
questionable decisions or some decisions that may not benefit the fan base. But at the same time, they all get some stuff right because that's why they're still releasing systems to this day, and we're going to see the next generation of, honestly, what I would call preference wars. It's not really console wars anymore. I think the console wars are done. People are already on the side that they're aligning to. There's nothing left to really war over. It basically is a fight over what your preference is.
It's a piss and match at this point.
Yeah, it's basically all it is.
Match it for $1. as a friend of ours used to say back in the cemetery days.
Yeah.
Match it for a buck. Good old, what is it, Artie?
Artie.
Good old Artie.
Yeah, but in your case, you'd have to go to 10-1.
Well, yeah, Paul wins every time. I'd have to do some creative calculating to beat out Paul. I got nothing.
Maybe on Mars with the increased gravity, or
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
it's cold out today.
But yes, let us know what you prefer and why you prefer it.
Let us know if you think that there still is a console wars, or what your most, I don't know, the most prolific memory that you have of the console wars. Did you grow up during the Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo era, when it really was the console wars trying to dominate for who was the supremacy of console gaming?
Yeah, which for the record, Genesis was beating Super Nintendo.
Genesis was beating them for a while.
For a hot minute, they were on top of the world. God, what a different world it would have been had they not killed themselves on the Saturn.
Well, what a
different
different world it would be if we had the Nintendo PlayStation.
God, it's crazy to think about that sometimes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How weird.
Well,
But
it'd be
it's
even
funny.
weirder if stuff like the CDI or something had it succeeded.
Yeah.
Imagine one of those
maybe.
off-brand
The
ones.
Neo Geo would have, or not the Neo Geo, the
3DO.
3DO
or
would have.
Jaguar.
If the 3DO wouldn't have been $700 back in 1993, it might have been a different story.
Could you imagine if one of those systems had won and killed the others?
That is just.
That'd be weird. I don't know if I could do that.
I know we've talked about that in a short while. Is that it's impossible to release a new console now?
It is.
It really is.
Yeah,
you can't compete with the big three.
No, you can't.
There's just nothing that's going to win.
No.
Yeah, but if you do software, you can still win.
You can you can still succeed in the software
Sega's
market.
still alive and still kicking. They're not the smartest bunch of people, but they're still alive.
Yeah, but they've also buddied up with their former enemy.
That's true.
Look at how many Sonic Mario crossovers there have been.
That's true.
Disgusting.
Yeah.
Anyway, hit us up on Facebook.
Hit us up on Twitter.
Go to powertripgaming.tv. We'll take you directly to the YouTube channel where you can watch us play through this 678 game NES library.
Or you can watch our side quest material where we play games that aren't the NES library, like the Super Nintendo or the Sega Genesis, because we don't care what we play.
Also known as having actual fun.
Yes!
Oh, yeah.
If you want, check us out on iTunes and Stitcher, and check out all of our other backlog of Powercast episodes at the PTG Powercast.
That's right. And if you don't want to contact us on Facebook or Twitter for some reason, because you either can't find us because we're so small in the sea of people.
We
Talk
most
about
certainly
yourself.
We're basically talking to ourselves. You can always email us at nespowertrip@gmail.com. NES powertrip@gmail.com. I will read it. There you go.
There you go.
Yeah, I would say I suppose I should actually spell out NES Powertrip instead of NES Powertrip.
Yeah.
Might be
yeah.
easier.
You may still get somebody who's going to type in NESS.
NES. No apostrophes in there for any of you guys.
No apostrophes.
Oh, that was one thing that pissed me off.
No
periods,
apostrophes
no
for
underscores.
all the wise people out there.
That was one thing that pissed me off. Was his
Be mature.
his analogy to I bet you spell Final Fantasy Final Fanta apostrophe Y. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about?
That's not
That doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's so funny because
You pretentious ass.
somebody making a joke like that in the same vein, like where you can't make a joke because there is no like S apostrophe Y. So already your joke is lost because that doesn't make sense. It just makes you look like an idiot.
Yeah, I was like, dude, I wanted to type that so bad. I was typing up a storm. My fucking Streets 112. I'm typing a storm right now.
Fucking legend.
Fucking legend. Me and Mark Rutsu. That's all I got, man. Fuck. This is
MRRL. Me and Mark Rutsu. Me and fucking Mark Rutsu.
Oh, man. That'll do it for another Power Trip Gaming Powercast.
Thank you for listening with power.
Hey.